On the 23rd of May 1701, right here along the banks of the Thames, one of the most notorious pirates in history was executed. Captain William Kidd was hanged at Execution Dock in Wapping on the charge of murder and 5 counts of piracy. The execution was messy, with the rope snapping on the first occasion and Kidd having to be hanged for a second time, this time killing him. His body was then gibbeted, strung up for all the public to see. His rotting corpse a warning to those thinking of following down a similar road.
Kidd was just one example of many. During the Golden Age of Piracy, in the late 17th to early 18th century, men and women from across Europe would sail the high seas under the black flag in search of fortune.
I'm going to be sorting the fact from the fiction, learning more about how pirates lived.
You had to travel light because you wanted to maximize the cargo. It had to be a very hard journey.
How they died.
Look.
Oh, wow.
Look at that.
Goodness, and is that the entire ball?
It is.
And why they still fascinate us today?
So it's the first time that we see a kind of big collection of pirate stories,
Right.
details of their lives, and potentially what they looked like.
This is kind of where it all starts, right? There's no source that predates this.
My journey begins upriver from the site of Kidd's execution, as I'm being given special access to come on board the Galeon Andalucia, a replica 17th century Spanish Galleon, the exact kind of ship that would have been terrorised, commandeered, and used by pirates. It was here that I wanted to learn a bit more about the world in which piracy was born.
Hi, Ulysses.
How you doing?
How are you? Good to see you.
Same here.
Here we are aboard the Galeon Andalucia. What a privilege it is to be here, first of all. When are ships like this, of this size, when do they start to be built?
Well, this is a replica of the 17th century. By the end of the 16th century, there were already galleons being constructed. The thing is, when they found the New World and they saw the potential of trade and settlements and so on, that's when they thought, okay, we need bigger ships.
Right, okay.
So that's when the galleons came in.
What kind of commodities are these ships designed to carry?
Well, on the way from Europe to the New World, they would carry people, they would carry livestock, they wanted to create farms over there. And then on the way back, they would bring, obviously, what we all have in mind, the gold, silver, but also things like spices, new clothes, new plants, and as well some new ideas.
Carrying all of these precious commodities made galleons like the Andalucia a prime target for preying pirate vessels. The size of the ships also severely limited their ability to sail away from danger, as I was to find out from Carlos, the ship's navigating officer.
The length of the ship, considering both the rudder that is to the stern of the ship and the bowsprit, is 50 meters in total. And actually the height of the highest mast is 33 meters from the waterline. As for the width in the most wide deck, which is the deck just below the main one, she's 10 meters in width.
And just thinking on those voyages from Spain to the New World, you know, how long are they traveling for, and how fast can this thing go?
Only using the sails, and by only being the only mean of propulsion, the sails, maybe let's say, depending of course on the wind and the conditions of the sea and roughness of the sea and such, let's say about 4 to 7.5 knots, more or less,
Okay.
let's say. She can catch that speed, but if the wind doesn't come from the right direction, they couldn't get to the place they wanted to. So they could take, let's say, 3, 4, maybe 5 months, worst of the cases. Crew members, each one have their different roles during the maneuvers for the sails in order to rig them, to set them up, to recover them, because each sail by itself requires a minimum amount of 10, 12 people in order to set completely the sail and then adjust it to the wind. And that's why each person on board, each crew member has their own work during that maneuver.
Yeah.
One knows that they have to pull
A speciality
the line.
almost, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a particularly interesting one is the people that have to climb up the mast and have to take out the lines that hold the sail to the horizontal mast. And those are very interesting works.
So, I mean, that would be extremely dangerous, obviously, especially during, storms and things like that.
Because there are a couple of things there, because nowadays we use harnesses and safety measurements, but back in the day, not only they didn't, but during storms and during any time of the moment that they needed to set the sails or recover them up, they had to climb up. And the highest you climb, the more accelerations you experiment because of the distance to the center of gravity. So that's kind of more dangerous the more height you get.
Right, of course, of course.
The job of any sailor in this era was most certainly treacherous. But where exactly did they live on board? I rejoined Ulysses below deck to see where the majority of the ship's crew would have spent their time on the long voyages to the New World and back.
So, Ulysses, we've come down one level to the, I presume, just gun deck. There is only one. First thing I would notice is, albeit they were short back in the period, the ceiling's a little bit higher.
It is. Most of the cargo would go down on the hold, but if they needed more space, and normally on the way back from the New World, they tended to be greedy. They would find the space whatever they could to get as much cargo as possible.
And we're talking about sort of 100 or so sailors at this point. How were they sleeping? Did all of them have hammocks?
Some of them would use the hammocks, but most of them would use the hard floor.
Wow, just on the floor.
Yes, just a mat on the floor, and they would have a box where they would keep all their belongings, and yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and they probably didn't have much in inventory, really, did they, at that time?
No, not really. I mean, you had to travel light because you wanted to maximize the space that you could use for the cargo.
True.
A hard journey it certainly was. One that was made even more challenging by external threats.
Okay, Ulysses, we're moving through the gun deck, and that's obviously something we can't ignore. These things right here are very much part of a Galeon story, aren't they?
Indeed. As we mentioned before, I mean, the cargo they carried was very valuable, so there were people interested in taking it for themselves. So most of the galleons would have gunpowder to defend themselves and the cargo they were carrying.
Yeah, we're talking about the cargo. There's so much gold and silver in the early stages, and then obviously sugar, rum, and that kind of stuff. They need to be able to protect themselves. And one of the biggest threats is, of course, privateers and pirates. Just how kind of vulnerable were these ships to pirates, especially in the sort of Caribbean area?
Well, I mean, the ships used by pirates and privateers normally were small ships, so they could be faster. And the galleons, when they were loaded, they were going very slow. Difference with today's ships is the maneuverability. You can have both sides full of cannons, but if you're going with the wind blowing from the stern onwards, it's very hard to get the side of the ship that you want to shoot onto the other ship in position, aim, and actually hit the target.
What would the preparation be like to get this ready?
Yeah, well, first of all, as we said before, people would be sleeping all around the gun deck, so they would have to get all cleared up so the cannons could be used. Then it would have, I mean, the conditions outside the ship would determine which side of the ship you would use, because normally you would use only one side of the cannons. They would open the gun ports. After that, there would be people that would know how to use the cannons, and they would get the gunpowder and choose their ammunitions. made of cast iron.
Right.
These
Oh
would-
wow, it's pretty weighty, yeah.
Yeah, and this was meant to basically make a hole on the other ship and try to
Burst through its
burst
hold
through it
or
and,
its gun
and get
deck.
water inside and
Yeah.
and make it sink.
Wow.
Very
heavy.
We have this sort of ammunition, which would be something like a grape shot.
Grape
this
shot,
would be meant to kill as many people as possible on the other ship.
So they just essentially reduce the size of the balls, almost glue. Would they stick them all together or just wrap them all in cloth?
I believe they were just wrapped in cloth and net and like this whenever they went out with the burst of the
Fired out the same cannons?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So that's really, it's a very anti-personnel weapon.
And then we have this other version of the cannonballs, and it's basically two of them attached together, and this was aimed for the rigging of the other ship. So this in the air starts spinning around, and you would aim it to demast the other ship, and so they would be adrift and an easier target then.
So, or chain shot, essentially trying to rip the masts of the enemy ship, slow them down.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Wow.
Now I knew what it was like to be on the receiving end of a pirate raid, it was time to head to dry land to learn more about who these people actually were. I've come to the National Maritime Museum, where I'm getting a look behind the scenes of their new exhibition all about piracy.
Well, Sophie, thank you for bringing me here to the National Maritime Museum stores. I've just been aboard a 16th, 17th century galleon, which could have been a ship that pirates might have targeted or might have sailed on themselves. But I realised I haven't really thought about pirates themselves. Who were these people?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, really. I mean, there were lots of different people got involved in piracy from sort of all around the world. But one of the main things would have been that they would probably be people who were quite well trained and previously been sailors themselves. So it would be unlikely that you were somebody who hadn't had some kind of experience of being a seafarer who would then join a pirate crew. Quite commonly, they might have been people who were actually involved in the Navy or the Royal Navy, and they may have found themselves either without work. So if there'd been conflict, there would have been a huge recruitment, and there would have been press gangs that would have brought people into the Royal Navy. And then when the conflict's over, what do you do and how do you earn your money? So there would have been a temptation for those people to potentially join a pirate crew. Also, you may have found yourself actually captured by pirates out at sea, and in some cases there was an opportunity there to actually join a pirate crew. So it was sort of I say opportunity, sometimes it would have been sort of death or joining a crew, so it's not really necessarily a choice as such, but lots of different people would have found themselves potentially part of a pirate crew.
The life of these pirates, there are these tropes, obviously. They're drinking copious amounts of rum, they're gambling all their treasure away, and the objects that we have in front of us, I mean, they kind of suggest that there's some truth behind these tropes. What have we got here? We've got some dice, some poker chips.
We do. So it's very kind of appealing to think of them as these sort of chaotic and adventurous characters who are kind of getting into fights all the time and gambling and drinking, as you say. And there would have been a bit of truth to that, definitely. And as these objects kind of speak to this idea of kind of entertainment and keeping yourself entertained on board, because actually pirate life, while there was conflict and battle, sometimes it could be quite dull at times. So you're keeping the ship running, and you're taking care of your weapons and that kind of thing. But obviously they would have had downtime where they would have sort of entertained themselves. But interestingly, in order to be a successful pirate crew, you actually had to be quite well behaved at times. So we've got evidence of sort of pirate codes that would have been a code of conduct that you would have signed up to join a pirate crew. And quite a famous one is actually one that was put together by the Welsh pirate Bartholomew Roberts, who's considered to be sort of one of the most successful pirates.
Having taken over 400 prized ships in his career, the Welsh-born pirate Bartholomew Roberts is often cited as the most successful of the Golden Age. Terrorising the coasts of West Africa and the Americas at the turn of the first decade of the 1700s, Roberts, or Black Bart as he became known, adopted one of the earliest variants of the skull and crossbones flag, and a code that contradicts some of our preconceptions about how pirates lived.
He had quite a strict set of rules, so no gambling for money, quite a strict bedtime. You were able to drink, but if you wanted to drink after everyone else had gone to bed, you had to go and drink on deck so that others could sleep. And largely the rules are there to sort of limit conflict. Yeah. So the most successful pirate crews are actually, they're all getting on well, they're well behaved, they're taking care of the ship. So there's an element there where they're a little bit more well behaved than we might have thought they would be.
But these objects show that occasionally they do have some time, as you said. They're not on raids constantly. There's a lot of downtime. They need to find some ways of entertaining themselves.
Yes, there would have been pastimes, absolutely. So there would have been games, there would have been, there would have been some drinking. They would have found ways to entertain themselves, absolutely.
Whilst some of Black Bart's rules were seemingly on the stricter side, crews often enjoyed much better conditions than they would have done in their nation's navy or on merchant ships. In fact, a form of democracy was practiced on board most pirate vessels, including that belonging to the Welsh captain. One of the first rules of Roberts' stated code read that every man has a vote in the affairs of the moment, securing at the start a pirate's right to participate in the selection of the captain. Another surprisingly enlightened aspect of pirate life was the distribution of loot. All treasure secured was shared with the crew, albeit not completely evenly, but even so, it was a far better and more lucrative deal for them than receiving a low wage in the Navy, where they'd gain no share of the spoils. The pirate code may seem like quite a departure from our preconceptions of how they lived, but more objects kept here at the museum remind us of the reality of the world in which they lived.
Sophie, having just seen those dice and the pipes, it's quite easy to romanticise pirates, thinking about their sort of carefree lifestyle. But when you see these objects in front of us, a stark reminder that at the end of the day, they were doing a lot of killing and there were raids, and this is a brutal business.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's not all kind of drinking rum and gambling.
Yeah.
It was a very sort of high risk, high reward lifestyle. So it's quite brutal. There's obviously a lot of violence. Fundamentally would have stopped at nothing to get their hands on what they wanted. So what you're looking at here is a kind of example of some of the weaponry and things that they would have been dealing with on a daily basis. This was actually found on board a Dutch ship that was sunk in 1672. So it's and it's, as you can see, it's quite weathered. But this is absolutely the kind of thing that if you were to encounter a pirate, it's likely that something like this might have been brandished at you.
It just kind of demonstrates there's the different sorts of weaponry that they would have been using. You're firing your pistol, maybe using the butt of the pistol, but they're not probably brandishing your sword once you're on deck.
Absolutely, yeah. There would have been that kind of close combat that would have definitely involved swords and other kind of bladed weapons.
The desire for a better life led many into piracy, but there is no doubt that this existence was brutal and bloody. Ships carrying precious loads were not going to give up their cargo without a fight. But what exactly did pirates use when boarding ships, and what kind of weaponry was used against them? I was at AC Sporting Targets in North London, where I met with John Hargreaves, who had agreed to show me his impressive collection of black powder firearms.
John, good morning.
Good morning.
What an arsenal of pirate weapons you have here. Tell me what's on the table.
Right, well, we've got blunderbusses. The earliest pistols would have been left over from the Civil War. That's where all your pirates came from. These are Queen Anne style pistols.
Yeah.
Most pistols come in pairs, of course.
Yes.
But the pirates, they stole most of them, didn't they? So they didn't always get the pair.
And you can imagine these sort of hoisted on a bandolier or in the tube.
Yes, in the belt.
Yeah.
This one is a blunderbuss pistol.
Wow.
There we are.
Oh my goodness
By
me.
Jova, great maker. And it's flared, brass barrel, good for the naval. The point is that you left them loaded all the time.
Yeah.
You kept them loaded because you never knew quite when you might need it. So
Very nice sort of lighter shotgun in a way.
it is. That's it. They were used with probably buckham ball, actually.
Right,
You have a
okay.
single ball and a buckshot on top. I'll show you the shot. And of course, this is the classic sea service.
Yes.
The sea service came in at about the 1720s.
Yeah,
So
right around
towards-
that period, yeah.
Yeah, so towards the end of the Golden Age, really.
Yeah.
This, see, complete with belt hooks, so you could stick it on your belt.
Right. Slightly more weighty, still beautiful though, and lovely decoration on all these weapons.
This
There's
is a
lot of
military
care.
style, so this is much more utilitarian. And of course, the most important thing, you've only got one shot, so
There you
that's
go.
your second shot. There would be a rack of these below, and the whistle would go up, you know, if once it got to close combat, and they'd all grab a pistol and to defend the ship.
And it's slightly heavier. You know, I guess they were kind of mass producing these to some extent.
The Board of Ordnance, you can see the Board of Ordnance marks on there.
Oh yeah.
They were all assembled in the Tower of London, so that's
Yeah.
why they're called Tower pistols.
Okay.
And the trade were making them for the Tower, and they were also making them for private purchase. That is a Tower, that is a genuine Board of Ordnance adopted pistol, but they were making just as many for the trade, so the privateers had them.
And of course, a lot of those privateers would then switch allegiances
Yes.
and go on their own.
If they plundered a ship and thought, we've made it big, they might think, why bother going back to Blighty when we can live a life of luxury?
A life of luxury was perhaps the thinking behind a certain Captain William Kidd's decision to turn from privateer and pirate hunter to one of the most wanted criminals of the late 17th century. For Kidd, the temptations of plunder were too great to ignore. The Scotsman captured numerous ships, including a vessel called the Quader, which had on board a cargo worth £70,000 and one of the biggest hauls in the history of piracy. A manhunt ensued, and Kidd supposedly buried his treasure on an island off the coast of New York. He returned to Boston hoping for mercy. All he found was chains and eventually a noose.
And in terms of the weaponry, you know, a lot of these pirates, they have been privateers or they've been in the wars. They are used to using. It's not like the
yeah.
pirates had their own individual weapons.
Oh,
they're
no.
using the same stuff,
Yep.
and they're used to using it,
Yes.
and they're experts in it. So
Yes.
why change? Well, how about we see how much damage a sea service pistol can do on the
we'll
range?
see what you can do with it.
Yeah, let's go.
That's your target, Luke.
Okay, not too
But,
far away, but
Well, that's about the maximum range you could expect to hit a man.
I'll cock it.
I'll sit back a little.
And you said maybe aim just a little bit below the target.
The target is his head, really, and you want to shoot at his belly. Well, you hit it. Well done.
I can't see from here.
I think you're a bit low.
It was a fair kickback. You need to have a pretty strong arm
Yeah.
to use these.
Yeah.
Let's inspect the target, John.
Yeah, by all means.
Oh, I can see it
Stumped
now.
Yeah.
Far too far to the left and a
Well,
little
you've-
bit low.
You've hit him in the shoulder, haven't you? So there's your mark. And look what it's done behind. It's blown a hole clean through this 3/4 ply and gone into the ground over there.
Oh, wow. So you can see the exit wound,
Yeah.
if you like. You know, it's a fairly clean
Yeah.
entrance, but yeah, it
Oh,
really
hang
has.
No, I think it's lodged in the target. It should have gone clean through.
I mean, that would be bad news for whoever was on the receiving
Oh,
end.
Cock it back to full cock, please.
Yep.
And give it your best shot. Bit lower, I think.
Whoa! Wow. That was definitely more of a kickback.
Good, good. Well, you hit very high that time.
Oh gosh, I've gone
did
the
say-
opposite way. Gosh, that went way too high.
One shot too low, And one too high. Let's see if I could split the difference.
You tell me what you think.
That looks a bit better, yeah. Straight through the heart.
There we go.
Bullseye.
Bullseye. Split the difference, John.
Fantastic. Fantastic. You've actually hit the spot.
That's insane. I can see it right now. Can we inspect that?
Yeah. Need to tread out any burning embers. Well done.
Wow, look at that. Right in the middle of the two, basically.
Absolutely spot on.
It shows you if you aim correctly, you could be quite accurate.
Well, you hadn't had any practice, had you?
Yeah.
You know, you hadn't had time to practice. First practice, second practice, third you bang on.
And can we see the
look
round the back?
Yeah. Go on. Look at that, smashed a big hole in the ply.
Oh wow, that's got straight through.
And there, look, there's the other one.
It's really,
I believe that ball
might be lodged in there.
is lodged in there.
Oh wow, look at this.
That one has come out, I think.
Yep.
But this one, I think, is in there.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see if we can get that ball out.
Put your hand underneath, Luke.
Yeah. Oh my goodness me, look at that.
Flattened it.
And is that the entire ball, or is
Yes,
that?
it's the whole ball being flattened to twice it's twice the caliber of the gun now because it's flattened out, and that's what it would do on your body, and that would tumble through your body.
That's devastating.
Yeah.
Straight through the heart.
Now, when I think about the Golden Age of Piracy and the weaponry involved, I don't necessarily come straight to muskets, but they would have had this kind of weaponry on board
Absolutely.
as well.
They had Marines who were always armed with a musket, and there'd be a small company of Marines on most British naval vessels. When it comes down to picking off individuals, that was the job of the Marines, and this is what they did it with, the Brown Bess musket.
And I can't imagine being on a sort of rocking ship and trying to sort of take out, presumably, the sort of...
often up in the crow's nest.
In the
as
crow's
well,
nest,
yes.
yeah. But they would have been doing that.
Yes.
In terms of the actual sort of mechanism itself, it's still quite. It's still quite a process trying to load this thing.
Yes. Now, great breakthrough with the musket was the adoption of the cartridge. Full of powder, with the end twisted. You bit the end off, poured the powder in. You then screwed up the paper and pushed the whole lot down because this is acted as your wadding. So you only needed to ram once. Much quicker process, and this could be done 3 times a minute.
Well, I don't think I'll be able to manage 3 rounds a minute. I can't even imagine doing that on board a ship. But let's see if we can hit the target on the range.
Don't you worry.
Good, thank you, John.
Half cock. You're primed.
Okay, you want to
this
put
way.
your defenders on?
Yes. Give me a moment, please. And if you'd step forward slightly.
Yep, and I'll pull it to full cock.
Full cock, please.
And let's see if I have what it takes to be a sharpshooter in the crow's nest of a pirate ship.
That's it. A fraction lower, fraction. That's it. Not a bad shot. I think you're about 4 inches left.
Is that on the target?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
Yeah. 4 inches left of the mark.
Oh yeah, I can just see that now. Just a little bit left and low, but
Oh, hang
honestly,
on. No. Left and low. Yes, you've got his kneecap. I thought it was. I was forgetting about that one.
oh right, so it's a lot lower
It's
actually.
his kneecap, and it was my fault. I told you to shoot low.
So I can blame you for that one then. John.
I'm afraid you can.
Wow, look at that. Doesn't matter if it's in the kneecap, that person's going to be
Yeah, it's taken their leg
disabled
off.
from the battle.
It's ripped their leg off.
that musket, you know, several hundred years old. They were lethal.
Oh yes, yeah.
You'd need a lot of practice to be able to hit a moving target with a musket up in the crow's nest of a swaying ship. Certainly more than you'd require with our next weapon, which has become synonymous with the Golden Age.
And John, this is what I've
Onto the
come to
blunderbuss.
see. Yeah, this is what I've been excited about. You've got two blunderbusses here.
Yes.
Tell me the difference between the both.
Well, the top one is a naval musketoon. The Navy called a long-barrelled blunderbuss. And the point is that longer range, you'd use a musketoon. And the difference is, just like your cannons fired single shot and your musket fired single shot, the musketoon fired canister.
It's like an early 18th century shotgun.
It is.
Gosh, it's a pretty...
Formidable.
It's pretty formidable. Again, I think in my ideal sort of pirate arsenal, I think I'd be carrying one of these. What's the first stage in the process?
Powder. Now I've made up some charges. So you pour the powder, and the extra bit, because it's 8 bore, is actually that much more, which is actually a quarter more.
It's putting even more powder than the brown bess.
Yeah, even more powder than the brown bess.
And a shorter barrel. It's gonna make a bang.
Correct. Correct. And because we're putting that in as a wad, so we ram that down. I'm now going to just pour these in. And here we are. 16 balls, in they go. I'm going to put a bit of cardboard on top.
And give that a ram down as well.
That doesn't need ramming quite the same. It just needs to be sat down gently on top of the charge to hold it in there, so that you can carry that around. You can turn it upside down, it won't fall out. Only remains for us to prime it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, shooting from here would be slightly wishful thinking with the spread.
Yes,
I'm
correct.
assuming he's going to come out of this. But let's bring our protective gear.
Yep.
And let's head a bit closer.
Absolutely.
To the
I need
target.
that. You can grab
I'll
that.
carry that. Let's go.
Make sure I've got my priming flask.
So roughly 20 yards again, John?
Yeah, I think here will do very nicely. So we're at half cock. I'm now going to prime it. There we are. I'm primed. You're at half cock. Let me put my ear defenders on.
Very important. I think this is going to make quite a bang.
Oh yes. If you like to mount that to your shoulder, you want to be able to see flush along that rib, be able to see over the top of my finger, hold it good and tight, cock it back to full cock. Good. I'm going to step back.
Okay.
Fire at will.
Oh!
Yep.
Oh, my shoulder. That was powerful. I can see them on the target.
Oh, they've peppered it. You've peppered it.
Let's have a look at it.
Yeah.
But my word, was that a kick. And I can see all the little bullet holes here.
There should be 16 holes in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, 15, 16. All 16 balls accounted for.
And we hit the knee with the musket. We've hit the straight bang in the chest with the flintlock pistol.
And now you're
now
taking his head out. And the
taken the
bloke
head out.
and the bloke over here that's standing next to him, you're taking his head off as well.
And that's something we really need to mention. That
Yeah.
I mean, these are gonna, you know, even if, 5 go into one person, so many people are gonna get affected.
Yeah.
And if one of these gets you in the neck, it's gonna cause a lot of damage.
Correct.
Easy to reload and packing a deadly punch, the blunderbuss was an ideal firearm for clearing the decks of enemy ships. But could you rely on it to accurately take out specific targets? Introducing Joe, the captain of our enemy vessel.
Okay, John, we're going from the hip
Yep.
for this one.
Right, I'm priming you. That is now primed, half cock. Let's just
Aim it up.
have a. That's too high. I would say that's too high. I would say that's about right. So when you're ready, cock it.
We're now cocked.
Tiny bit. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Give it. Go for it.
Whoa! I'll tell you what, John, that marine is no longer.
I think that hurt.
Yeah, and do you know what? The blunderbuss, it almost flew out my hands.
Oh yeah, there's equal and opposite forces.
Absolutely. Well, let's go see.
Let's go and see
what we've done to
how Joe.
poor old Joe.
Yeah.
So we have not only knocked the board back, we have completely ripped apart Joe's skull here. I want to pick this up. Whoa, look at that. That's shredded it to pieces.
Yeah.
And it has a kind of like a shotgun. It's more of a shredding rather than a complete.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is
Close
truly
ranges.
devastating. Joe is well and truly no longer. He's certainly not defending the cargo that we're after anymore.
No, I'm afraid there's no brain matter left for him to do any thinking.
The damage that these 18th century handheld firearms could do during a boarding action was clear to see. But in the Golden Age, it wasn't just portable weapons that were in play when fighting raged on deck. Cannons of all sizes remained a deadly threat to those attacking and defending their ships.
This really is a weapon that we associate with the Golden Age. It's the swivel gun.
Precisely. Every frigate, light frigate, would have had at least two of these, one on each bow, but several more, sometimes up on the, usually on the poop deck at the aft of the ship, possibly on the prow as well. And the point of them was that if you had boarders coming across, coming in boats, then you could swing it round and shoot them in the water on the boats, or you can swing and shoot at the boat, or you know, that's the whole point. Or you could shoot at someone up in the rigging.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so.
Even if you're being chased by another, you know, your cannons might not be in place to fire them side on. You might be able to fire backwards.
They're very restricted view.
Yeah.
Whereas this can sweep the whole deck, sweep across your own deck. If you're being overrun by salt, then these were shot with a solid ball, like a normal cannon. Not very effective. You might as well use a big cannon. The only thing is that, you know, you can point this in any direction. But this was used to fire canister, like we were showing, well, as I had on the table. This is going to fire a canister of shot, and I have the canister here. See, already made up.
Yeah, you were showing me earlier.
And that's the powder charge in the bottom there.
Yeah.
Filled with musket balls. I know these is very light, this one. As it's that shot. Simply put it in the gun. Obviously, if we're loading for real, we would have, for the first time, if it had fired, you'd have to wet sponge it.
Yeah.
But we don't need to do that because we haven't fired it yet. We push that in, push it down with the rammer. And then I have to puncture the cartridge. I'm happy with that, that's punctured it. And then we use some priming powder. I'm going to use my flask here, but they would have used this horn. This horn has got 2 quarts of powder.
Yeah.
We want fine powder for the touch hole. Put a few grains down the touch hole, and that's your mark. Just like that bit, and the flame will jump down the touch hole.
Fire away. Oh!
So each of those, that shows you the spread
Yeah.
of all those musket balls.
Wow, I could just imagine if we had actually loaded that with some proper balls, they would have gone flying
Oh, absolutely.
and spreading a
and
huge distance.
Fire, fire! We've set fire to your field.
As if to perfectly illustrate the range of the weapon and the devastation the swivel gun could cause, we had inadvertently set fire to some of the grass up on the hill downrange. Luckily, I had a modern fire extinguisher, a luxury not yet accessible to the crews of the Golden Age.
Yeah, I mean, you can set things alight with this, certainly. And what always surprises me is for a cannon, it doesn't look too big, but it really does pack way bigger punch than you think.
Yeah, indeed, they did fire incendiary for setting, but mostly below deck. But that wasn't that. That was to show you the effect of buckshot,
Yeah.
or canister shot. So yes, very effective.
And what we've really seen today is there are so many different weapons of that age that
Yeah.
pirates could use, but also had to face.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, doesn't it, the risk that they were taking every time they approached a ship, that they had all these things that we've looked at to worry about, but they also had them themselves. They certainly weren't just boarding with cutlasses. That's a myth.
No, that was the last. That's the last thing.
Last
Yeah,
thing.
the
Well,
yeah.
John, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for bringing all these weapons out and testing them.
You're very welcome.
Joe might not thank you, but I certainly will.
It's good having you.
Well, we certainly went out with a bang, as did many pirates of the Golden Age, who met their ends at the hands of the weapons demonstrated at the range. Bartholomew Roberts famously would have his throat ripped out by grape shot fired from a cannon during a naval battle, whilst Blackbeard suffered a musket ball wound from a flintlock pistol before being cut down by the sword of Lieutenant Robert Maynard off the coast of North Carolina. The stories of these pirates' rise and fall have become a thing of legend. But where exactly do these stories come from? How do we know who these notorious people were? The answer lies back in the storerooms of the National Maritime Museum.
Yeah, so these books are quite significant in terms of why we think that we know a lot about pirates and where some of those myths come from. It was published in 1724 originally. It's called The History of Pirates. And there's actually a bit of a mystery about the book itself. The author, Captain Charles Johnson, nobody actually knows who he is. It's now thought that it's probably written by a newspaper publisher called Nathaniel Mist, who got himself into a bit of legal trouble and needed a bit of money to pay some libel bills. So he potentially collected together a lot of stories around pirates from the time. And what you're looking at here are some very early editions of this book. And it's essentially a collection of biographies about pirates with some illustrations of them. So it's the first time that we see a kind of big collection of pirate stories,
Right.
details of their lives, and potentially what they looked like and what they got up to.
And the dates, I mean, these look incredibly old, first of all, but they also date back to kind of just after that Golden Age.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're looking at 1724, 1725, and around this time, piracy would have very much been in the public imagination.
Of course.
And actually, you've got a kind of huge push by the British government to sort of suppress piracy. There's a lot of piracy that's been going on in and around the Caribbean. It would have been a huge problem for trade around that time. There was a massive peak, sort of end of the 1600s, early 1700s
Yes.
of piracy. So the characters included in these books would have been quite well known at this point.
And this is really kind of, in terms of what we know about pirates today, this is kind of where it all starts, right? There's no kind of source that predates this.
Not in this level of detail, absolutely not. So in terms of a lot of the kind of mythology and a lot of the characters that we know, these are kind of where they come from. This is the first time you see a lot of that information collected together. Before, it's maybe, logbooks where someone's reported encountering a pirate or some trial records. But actually, in terms of really collecting together that detail. This is the first time that you see it all published together like this. And there's a lot of sort of elaborations and myths that we can sort of trace back to these, which show up later on in, literature and theatre and film, and in the versions of pirates that we think we understand today. A lot of it comes from here.
And Sophie, let's get into some of the detail of this here. I can see this edition here, 1724. It's got a table of contents, so I can already see Captain Kidd, some of the really famous names.
Yeah, some names that people would have recognised around that time. So we've got, in a few of these different editions, we have Captain Kidd, who actually met quite a grisly end not far from where we are now, in Wapping. And we've also got Mary Read and Anne Bonny, who are two quite well-known pirates. At that time, it was believed by some people that it was bad luck to have a woman on board your ship. So in order to actually be on board the ship, there is a belief that they had to sort of disguise themselves and wear male clothing, which you can see in this image here.
Yes, you can see.
But they were both, they both were on board a ship with Captain Jack Rackham, who was, again, quite a well-known pirate. You've got Anne Bonny, who was from Ireland, and you had Mary Read, who was born in England. They both found themselves on board this pirate ship with Jack Rackham, and they both were captured in about 1720. And Mary Read actually they're both imprisoned, and they actually both managed to avoid the death penalty by claiming that they're pregnant.
Of course, pleading the belly as a way of...
Mary Read dies in prison. Anne Bonny disappears. We don't quite know what happened to Anne Bonny. But they're both, incredibly interesting characters. Both got very much involved in the conflict, and the battles were both considered to be very good, with swords, and very kind of, very much involved in the pirate crew, which would have been really rare at that time for a woman.
Well, you've got to think that they obviously made a name for themselves because they feature in the book.
They absolutely were. They were very well known. They're still very well known today. You've got people kind of writing books about them still and researching their lives because so little is known and people are trying to piece it together. So you've still got people writing about them today, so they still fascinate people, and there's been sort of plays written about them because they celebrate this idea of adventure and being able to sort of run away from the norms of society at the time. So at a time when a woman's place in society might have been very, defined and limited to a degree, they're off in the Caribbean, pirating.
Well, it's another really iconic pirate. It's, of course, Blackbeard. What I find interesting about this excerpt here is you've got one of the first images of Blackbeard. It doesn't look too threatening. He doesn't have his beard's not on fire, doesn't have about 17 pistols.
He doesn't look very dramatic in this, does he? No, as you can see here, he's wearing a sort of a fur cap. He looks quite refined. He doesn't look particularly intimidating in this image. And one of the interesting things about this book is that the illustrations change over time, and they almost seem to become embellished with the mythology of pirates. So the book itself, although it sets some of the myth, it also seems to then also be influenced by the myths that sort of circulate in public imagination. So here he looks quite calm by comparison. But in later editions, the tricorn hat that we sort of associate with piracy with the 3 points on it, he depicted wearing one of those. He has more weaponry. At one point, there is an illustration of him where his beard is kind of on fire, which apparently was one of his tactics to intimidate people. So when he was kind of sailing towards people, he would light some fuses in his beard to encourage people to potentially surrender.
And I wonder why it would be in the interest either of the author or the people reporting about Blackbeard to depict him in that way.
It feeds into our desire for adventure, I think, and I think that underlines the appeal of the pirate story in general. That's why we seem to sort of forgive the brutality and the violence of what they got up to, because there's this aspect of adventure and sort of freedom and exploration and living outside of the law that seems to appeal to public consciousness somehow.
Well, it's been absolutely fascinating seeing those objects here at the National Maritime Museum. I think clearly a lot of what we know, or what we think we know about pirates, stems from the general history written in the 18th century and built upon by the media ever since. There was a pirate code, a relative democracy aboard pirate ships. They did inspire fear in sailors all across the globe, as well as interest from the public. As someone who's been fascinated by pirates ever since I was a child reading Treasure Island, I find I get myself into a dilemma when learning more about their real history in the Golden Age. On the one hand, it's easy to romanticise them. These were brave men fighting against the establishment, the wealthy, exploitative maritime powers of the era. On the other hand, it's easy to demonise them. Technically, they were criminals who killed and thought they were above the law. But having been aboard the Galeon and learning more about life aboard ships through the objects here at the Maritime Museum, I find it really hard not to root for them. Were they not, at the end of the day, people simply searching for a better life in such a violent, unruly world, who were simply willing to take more of a risk for a more lucrative reward? What would you choose?
If you'd like to find out more about the real history behind pirate life, check out the National Maritime Museum's temporary exhibition on pirates, running until the end of the year. All links are in the description below.